Hello, my friends. This is April 8, and I welcome you to my Songs and Stories podcast. Take a second today to subscribe, and you'll never miss another song or story. Hello, my friends. I have some exciting news to share with you. Now is the time to sign up for my weekly newsletter at early bird pricing. There will be free content, of course, but I'll be sharing exclusive stories, special songs, videos, live storytelling, and more from my paid subscribers. You don't want to miss these little treasures. So the early bird pricing is $5 a month or $50 for the whole year. So jump in before the price goes up in October. You can find me on Substack at Stay Up Late with April 8, or go on over to my website, april8.com, and click on the newsletter link. And as always, that 8 is spelled out EIGHT. And now it's time to find out what happened next for Mookie. I like to start out all of my stories with a special little song that goes like this. Oh, ye time-bound travelers, lay down your cares and rest your bones, and I'll tell you a fairy tale that I have come to know. And now it's time for our story. Truth be told, Mookie had had a hard time sleeping. He'd laid awake for a long time in the night, listening to the steady beat of the rain on the roof. He tried to work out all the puzzle pieces in this baby dragon situation, but he couldn't get them to fit together, no matter how hard he tried. The words of the Chatterburger kept coming back to him. Who are you, Mookie, to be the one that sacred creature is entrusted with? And even though he knew that a gnome and a mouse had given him the magic egg, he still didn't know why or what he was going to do about it. The dragon was growing bigger every day. Grandpa was right. Pretty soon she wasn't going to fit through the door. And Faith the fairy had said that she was valuable and that someone might try to hurt their little dragon. Well, she was part of the family now. How could he protect her if she didn't even fit in the house? When the clock ticked to 6 a.m., Mookie decided to just go ahead and get up. He wasn't going back to sleep. It was so early that the whole house was quiet, peaceful, and dark. Grandpa must still be asleep. Mookie tiptoed past his sweet puppy Shemaiah and the baby dragon. They were curled up fast asleep together on the rag rug in the kitchen. Mookie smiled. The baby Chromanian dragon had turned the same blue as the rug in her sleep. She really was almost twice the size of Shemaiah now, getting bigger every day. Mookie slipped out the back door and he headed out to the chicken coop. He always felt better when he was with his chickens. The rain had cleared up in the early morning hours, and it smelled wonderful outside. As he swung open the coop door, he gave a sigh. This was where it had all started. Most of the chickens were still asleep, making their little snoring noises that Mookie loved. But the bright eyes of Theodosia looked up at him, and she clucked. Mookie picked her up in his careful way, and he tucked his chicken under his arm. There's a good girl, Theodosia, he whispered. You are a good hen, aren't you? He gently patted her speckled feathers and enjoyed her warm weight in his arms. They said you're my favorite chicken, Thea. He grinned at her. Well, maybe they are right, she cooed quietly in response. He looked around at all of his chickens in the morning light. I love you guys, he said quietly. He wished he could stay in this coop all day. Suddenly, Mookie heard a squeaky voice right outside of the coop door. "Here we are, in the best garden in all of the land of Don't Go There." Well, Mookie jumped in surprise at hearing the voice, and Theodosia squirmed out of his arms and hopped right back into her nesting box. Mookie listened intently, trying to figure out what was going on out there. He recognized that it was Brisbane the mouse who he just met last night, now standing in his backyard. And Brisbane was talking to someone, but who? It must be his gnome friend Tom, who'd come with him. Mookie was about to open the coop door to say hi, but Brisbane and Tom started arguing in the middle of Grandpa's garden. Mookie could hear Tom say, "Brisbane, no way! You cannot take any more peas out of this garden." There was a crunching sound, as though Brisbane was munching on a giant mouthful of peas. Mookie listened more closely. What should he do? He didn't want Brisbane to eat any more of Grandpa's peas, but he also felt suddenly shy, like he didn't know what to say. There was a real live gnome and a talking mouse in his yard. He stayed inside the chicken coop, but he kept listening to their conversation. "Oh, come on, Tom." Brisbane sounded like he was talking with his mouth full. "It's okay. That Grandpa guy just grows more. There are plenty of peas to go around." Well, Mookie thought, so that's where Grandpa's peas have been going. Into Brisbane's mouth. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Who knew such a tiny mouse could eat so many peas? "Brisbane, you have no manners," said the gnome. Brisbane let out a laugh. "Mice don't have manners, Tom. We're mice. We sneak around and nibble on whatever looks yummy. That's what mice do." "Well, if that's how you're going to act around here, after all these humans have done for that dragon that we stuck them with, then I'm going home." The gnome sounded serious. "What's the big deal?" Crunch, crunch, crunch. "Why do you care so much about me eating peas from this garden?" You're not just eating peas, Brisbane. You're stealing them. Look, this is why I care. I'm a gnome. Gnomes work. Gnomes help. That's what gnomes do. Stealing peas is definitely not helping. "Well, it's helping me to eat my favorite food." Crunch, crunch, crunch. That was the last straw. The gnome said, "I'm going home." Mookie didn't know what to do. He didn't want Tom to leave, but he didn't want to get into the middle of their argument either. He stood silently in the chicken coop, wondering what to do. Brisbane let out a snort. Okay, don't go home. I'll stop. I'll just starve to death." Brisbane's mouth didn't sound so full anymore. What it sounded was glum. "Oh, brother," said Tom with no regret. "Poor old Brisbane, the little mouse who didn't get to eat all of the old Grandpa's peas." The gnome was laughing now. Okay, that's enough, Tom. And who are you calling little?" The mouse gave a snort. "Gnomes are impossible." "That's what people say," said Tom. "Gnomes aren't real. They're impossible. Yet, ta-da! Here I am." Mookie smiled to himself. That gnome was right. Suddenly, Mookie heard the back door of the house swing open, and Grandpa's voice called out, "You two silly dogs, take care of your business, and then I'll feed you some breakfast." And the scuffle of Shemaiah and the dragon running down the back steps. The mouse and the gnome gave a yelp. And before Mookie could get out of the coop to stop them, Shemaiah was barking like a crazy puppy, and the dragon was giving a ferocious roar that Mookie had never heard before. Mookie threw open the coop door and he ran out into the garden. As upset as he was with Brisbane for eating all of Grandpa's peas, he still didn't want him to get attacked by a doggy and a dragon. But when Mookie got into the yard, the gnome and the mouse were nowhere to be seen. "Shemaiah, dragon, sit," said Mookie in his firmest voice. And they both sat. Grandpa grabbed Shemaiah by the collar and squinted up into the mulberry tree. He rubbed his old eyes and he said, "Well, I'll be a real gnome. I thought that was impossible, but there you are." "Ta-da!" chuckled Tom, and he looked over at Brisbane and they both laughed. The two magical creatures were just sitting up on a tree branch, looking down at Mookie and his grandpa. "Mooks, you're up early," said Grandpa. "Yeah, I couldn't sleep, but I did find out who's been eating all the peas in your garden, Grandpa." "Who, Mookie? Rabbits?" "Mice," said Mookie, and he pointed up at Brisbane. Grandpa gave a little scowl. "Sir," called down the little mouse from above, "you have the most delicious peas in the entire land of Don't Go There. And I'm just a little mouse. I could not resist them." Grandpa shook his head. He didn't fall for the flattery, but he was a forgiving man. "You two come on down. These two won't give you any trouble," he said, pointing to the dog and the dragon. "Are you sure?" said the gnome. "Yup," said Grandpa, and he took an extra little hold of Shemaiah's collar. "I've been training them both. Just watch." Grandpa put up his hand and he gave a signal. "Lay down." Both the dog and the dragon laid down. Well, the gnome and the mouse scurried down the tree, and Brisbane climbed right up on Tom's shoulder like he'd done it 1,000,000 times. Tom looked up at Grandpa and Mookie, and he adjusted his hat a little shyly. He said, "Hi, I'm Tom Gnome, and I think maybe Brisbane told you about me?" He looked around at the baby dragon, and he said quietly, in a serious voice, "Maybe we should get that dragon inside." Snip, snap, snout. For today, my tale is all told out. Come back next time and hear more of the story of Mookie and the Magic Egg, which will only be available to my newsletter subscribers at Stay Up Late with April 8 on Substack. So subscribe today at early bird pricing for only $5 a month. The link is in the show notes or at april8.com. Come see me. You can also find me on Instagram at April8 Songs and Stories or on Facebook at April8. Please share the April 8 Songs and Stories podcast with your family and friends and take a minute to write a review to help other parents find these stories for their children. Until we meet again, remember, I love you and you are wonderful, just as you are right now.